This video is part 2 of a series I like to call Oh Dear God, Why Am I Doing This to Myself? Please Make It Stop, Sekiro Long May the Shadows Reflect Edition. If you haven't seen the first one, I'd recommend it, but the TLDR, mod super hard, make you hate game. Oh, also, shameless YouTuber plug, if you like modded content and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. No, wait, I can do better than that. Oh, I know, my good pal JK and I are competing to get to 1 million subs first. He's got a bit of a lead on me, but if I win, I will fly to his house, paint him green while he sleeps, and replace all of his water filters with Ziploc bags filled with Kool-Aid mix and sugar because I'm not a monster. Right, enjoy the video. With the corrupted monk defeated, I decided to backtrack a little bit. I noticed one of those big bell heads had glowy purple eyes, and I knew he would probably have something special. I didn't like the idea of him being surrounded by enemies, but they are the weak Mibu villagers, so optimistically I can just whirlwind slash or mortal draw them out of the way if need be. There is nothing changed about this enemy except that he inflicts curse and has 3 health bars. I don't believe I mentioned it last time, but that's pretty par for the course in this mod. A lot of the added mini-bosses are just the same as normal, plus curse. Either way, he falls and I get the miasmatic grave wax intestines? My favorite snack. Next up on my to-do list is to terrorize the local villagers for a few hours. I do this on and off throughout the run, both to collect sin, but also after defeating a boss, I would usually be like halfway to the next skill point. And I mean, I was sure the game would kill me shortly after, so I wanted to at least make the bar full so when I inevitably die, I didn't really lose anything. With my, hard-earned money, I upgrade the fan, but this is just so I can start making my way towards the lilac umbrella. I wasn't totally sure, but something told me that having extra defense against curse would probably be a good thing. I then returned to Masaomi, the lone shadow added before Dad's parting words in Hirata Estate. I was, super sure that he would drop something important, but I was worried if I advanced the game's state, he would disappear and it would be lost forever. Hirata Estate might be out of that. I'm not actually sure what happens to this section after you get Owl's Bell. I'd never turned around to check. Either way though, he has a death grip on that item and I got tired of trying. So instead, how about I fight an even harder boss, Lady Butterfly? Yeah, I died a lot here. The first trick I used was to intercept her with shurikens when she jumped around, particularly when she went for the grab perilous attack. Obviously this is dangerous because if she lands the grab, she restores vitality and posture off stabbing me in the neck. If she jumped to reposition, then I would just get close to hit her right as she was about to land. If you're a bit late, she might deflect it, but any solid hit to the body is good for the vitality damage. She has a super deadly combo that can be a pain to deflect, good for posture buildup if you do, but whenever she goes into this crouching animation, she's about to do it. I always just hit her once to knock her out of it to avoid the equivalent of getting roughed up by Edward Scissorhands. The only attack I never really understood how to deal with was the one where she disappears and reappears behind you. Several of the small humanoid bosses have this kind of move, where it automatically unlocks the camera and they reposition. At first I thought just turn the character and deflect, worry about the camera after that, but I was never able to get that to work. A few times I did try attacking in the direction that they would be because it's always the same, like Butterfly is always behind you, but that always just seems slower than whatever the boss did, so I'm not really sure. Lastly, it's better to just sidestep her kunai because of the ridiculous number of them and the fact that they all cause poison buildup. Her second health bar is the same as the first, so with enough patience she'll go down, but now the real fun begins. Phase 2, which of course also has 2 health bars, is a much more frantic encounter. She can still summon her squad of ghost lackeys, fortunately they haven't been buffed to chase down the player. You can use a snap seed to Thanos them out of existence, but I actually found more success pressuring the boss until she does it for me. Then I would just run wide around the arena, or if we were positioned correctly, just stand behind the furthest pillar to avoid the absolute onslaught of angry butterflies. When she does the repositioning leap now, she'll stop just short of the ground and attempt to go for a grab, making the retaliatory hit much more dangerous but still doable. As long as you're behind her, she tends to miss, so if you've been recognizing this attack early, it's just a repositioning thing. And if she ever does the triple jump to grab thing, shurikens still work just fine to knock her down a peg. Unfortunately, now when she goes for that long combo, she summons Butterfly, so it's not free to knock her out of it. If you got good at deflecting it in phase 1, then you should be fine. The pillars play an integral part of stopping the butterfly attacks, but they can also dick you just as hard, like here when she was one shot from being posture broken and the pillar decided to side with her and stop my advance. This is about the point where I slowly started to realize how useful chasing Slice actually was. It can close the gap and hit the opponent for some solid damage if timed correctly. Honestly, it and the spinning shuriken were my go-to offensive prosthetics for quite some time. Oh, and by the way, her version of Curse maxes out your posture bar. Technically, if you perfect deflect everything, you could work around this, but yeah, good luck with that. Near the end of the fight, she did her acrobatic stuff like 5 times, and every single time I shut it down with my beloved Beyblade of Death, which ultimately allowed me to finally take down Madame Butterfly. That was an ordeal, an optional one at that, but hey, more attack power is always more gooder, right? Wow, I'm sure glad I wasn't standing over there. I could have died. I returned to the big hole in the ground to do some pest control. Now, at first you might be thinking I've lost my mind. Why would I bother killing the curse crickets? Well, one, if you think I've only just now gone insane, no, that ship has long set sail. And two, if you kill them all, the pest puppeteer mini-boss spawns. This is actually a super easy mini-boss. He doesn't do a lot of damage and has low vitality and posture, something I never thought I would say about any of the bosses in this mod. The real challenge is that it constantly spawns those accursed crickets. Proper use of the purple gourd is necessary, but in no time flat that's another mini-boss down and another new item acquired. To counteract such an easy boss, I figured the next thing I would do is take on Vara, the lightning glaive guy in Simpo Temple. At first, I tried to use the door to cheese him, as he can't actually come in here, but his lightning attacks can easily blast me through the door, so this wasn't a great plan. I kinda wish I had realized how easy Mortal Blade Cheese was, but that time has yet to come. I tried out a few different tactics here, mainly finger whistle to lure the regular monks to the door and then puppet them as necessary. It kinda worked, but then something insane happened and I'll never forgive the mod for it. Through the totally calculated event of him backflipping over me and hitting him out of the air with his shuriken, he ended up on the other side of this railing where his AI didn't know what to do. At first I thought, oh man, this is great, no idea how I'll handle the death blows, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Then he fell off the ledge. My heart exploded with happiness, a free boss kill. That happiness was quickly obliterated though, as he just landed on the roof below and was totally fine. And wouldn't you know it, when I jumped off trying to follow him, it was too far for Wolf, so I got teleported back. Why does that matter? Because going down there normally causes him to de-aggro, which resets his health bar. Great. I gave him a few more attempts, but never really got anywhere close. In hindsight, I probably should have went to fight the regular glaive dudes and learn their movesets before throwing myself at the one with lightning and 3 health bars, but hey, live and learn. Hanging on the edge of hope, I decided instead to turn my attention to Lone Shadow Rima the Toxic Moth. This is the Lone Shadow that's near the first Mibu Village Shrine. The reason for doing this is partially what I mentioned before. I wanted to clear all bosses before each world change, as I feared they would drop something necessary for the mysterious in-game events. On the mod page, there's actually a file you can download that will tell you where all the bosses are, and so I downloaded it because I would have been royally pissed with myself had I suffered through all of them only to find out that I missed Yosuke the Prolapser behind the castle or something. That text document lists 89 fucking bosses. To be fair, only 36-ish of them are pre-first event, but that's still 36 mini-bosses that are just health-bloated regular enemies with the occasional one mistake equals death mechanic. It's not a fun time. So I return to the castle ready to scale it and confront my destiny. First though is another red-eyed Angie general, but this one is one of the spear ones. To take out my frustration from earlier where I couldn't even get close to him, I decided this one had to die. He's surrounded by 3 ads, and at first I thought I would just run up and mind control one and hope for the best, but then I realized I could actually use the finger whistle to slowly pull them back to me. Smartly, I puppeted the last one and then ran up to get a free stealth death blow on the boss. It still took a couple of tries, but I will note something that I've always felt to be true, but I wasn't sure. See, I kinda had this feeling that one of the things that made base game 7 Spears Man so difficult was the location you fight him. Something about the angles of the terrain I felt threw off being able to easily Makita counter one of his thrusts. It might just be confirmation bias, but I found it much easier to do here on flat ground. I make my way up the castle scaffolding, making sure to run by every single lone shadow I can find just so they know that I'm here and enter through the back door. Now it's time for the 100% not optional, don't comment saying it is, I will deny it, fight with the Vile Hand. Of course I puppet the one in the room to make it even easier. I actually ended up keeping my puppet friend alive through the majority of the fight just by massaging the neurons at the base of his skull. And yes, in case you were wondering, the Vile Hand inflicts curse. At this point in the playthrough, I was still weak little baby man and didn't have the confidence in fighting these guys. But with the power of hindsight, this fight actually wouldn't have been an issue. Thanks mod, you broke my brain in a way that was actually beneficial for future runs. I guess. Up top, I hear a conversation between my not-so-dead dad and Kudo. When I asked Pops why he'd been gone for so long, he simply told me that the nearby Kombini didn't have milk, he had to go to the further one. Obviously, I believe every word he says, and now I have to murder best girl Emma. Wow, that escalated quickly. Well, I say had to murder her, but the reality is she beat my ass so hard it made me question my life choices. So I looked back at Pops and said, hey man, maybe we don't? He didn't like that. Yeah, I normally do Emma Isshin before Owl, but here is the truth. The mod is a slog. I know I complained about it in the last part, so I don't really want to go over it again as, well, honestly, it'll probably come back up anyway, but having to fight through so many health bars and such an insane amount of HP is just tedious at best. In the specific case of the Shuda ending though, it occurred to me that even if I beat it, it doesn't do anything. Like, after they're defeated, I would just need to roll back the save anyway. No memory or skill, they just poof out of existence. So, I decided that if I was going to do them, they wouldn't be right now, it could come later. Maybe. But don't worry, Owl made sure I paid for not taking them seriously. This was 17 minutes into an attempt, by the way, and he still has 2 health bars. I had so many attempts on him, I actually had to go back to Mibu Village and farm Sin and emblems because I ran out of them. Which is extra wild because really all I was doing was using shurikens the whole time. You know, the thing that costs a single spirit emblem. So, Owl. This fight, like most fights, felt like an endurance test, the winning attempt clocking in at a whopping 16.5 minutes. To be fair, I probably wasn't playing super optimally, but there is a lot of downtime in this fight. Owl loves to springboard off your face every chance he gets, which I did counter by using Chasing Slice, but because of the insanely low damage, especially at the current game's attack power, it still took forever. Overall though, his moveset changes are actually kinda nice, so let's talk about those. His double shuriken throw can now be comboed into a rush that ends with a flaming sweep attack that's easy to jump over. He gets a damaging mist attack. I never figured out how to counter this one, instead opting to just run away anytime I saw the glint of his, smoke ball hand. Once he enters phase 2, he now throws poison and firecrackers at the same time. Instead of sweeping with fire after the charge, he will instead jump up and spin, which I chose to dodge under, though you can parry it. He gains an Elden Ring style delayed overhead swing that's infused with poison. I got hit by this a lot because it's basically the one attack in his kit that isn't the same speed as everything else. He had a couple of other minor changes, like in phase 1 when he backflips he'll throw 2 shuriken waves, or in phase 2 they become a spinning kind so you have to deflect multiple hits in a row. Also they inflict poison, because of course they do, but the core movement is still the same. Weirdly enough, one of the things I noticed is that he doesn't have curse, and I'm not sure why. When he does his smoke bomb there is a purplish tint to the mist, but it never built up, so I don't know. Not that I'm complaining, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure Father Owl probably coats his weapon in the crap. Anyway, Pappy Bird gets sent to the Shadow Realm and it's finally time to move on. Hello, Kuro. My father is dead. Is there anything I can get you? A juice box, perhaps? Time to go to Fountainhead Palace, but it's not going to be as easy as it usually is. There's one lone witch from Mibu Village, but I noticed the boss's name is Shadow Z of Mibu, plural. So I was hesitant to just approach, and it seems I was right, as when I finally did, a very large number of invincible ghost enemies popped out of the ground. Yay! And no, Snapseeds don't work. I knew if I didn't tell you, you'd all ask. Now that I think about it, ask anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. I do not know what the intent of the mod author was here. Was it really to fight like all 20 enemies at the same time? Because that's stupid, honestly. Like, just flat out. The alternative, of course, and what I did, was to run around the arena trying to separate the main boss from the group as best I could, then just go ham on her until the tidal wave of ghosts showed up. This just wasn't fun. Maybe I missed something like perhaps Malcontent would have worked, but I honestly kinda doubt that. Either way, the shadow goes down, and that's the last leg day I'll need for the century. Next up is True Monk. First, 4 health bars. Second, cursed weapon by default. Did you expect a first try? Because I sure didn't. At this point, I was honestly kind of feeling exhausted by the run. Every fight just being an endurance test and all, so I thought I would take a minute to just relax, set up for the in-game quest, maybe grab a couple items and refresh before I got back to having my ass handed to me on a silver platter every 12 seconds. So I ate so much rice I put my local Kokoichi out of business, received a street rice ball from Kudo, grabbed a prayer bead from underwater, spoke to the undying divine child near a big tree, took a book from a dead guy, stabbed a man in the back because he wouldn't let me fly his kite, then got my shit rocked by Ghost Snake Eyes. It always comes back to me dying, doesn't it? I'm not entirely sure this version of Snake Eyes is easier or harder than the normal ones. It felt easier, but maybe it's because I have more attack power than I did when I took on the normal guys. I'm really not sure. At the very least though, it does make me more confident should I go back and take on the mini-boss 1 for any reason. Now you might be wondering why I'm doing this at all. Well, as it turns out, to progress through the post-game events the mod adds, you need to finish Black Cat Badger's questline. The good news is that simply by trying to go for the true ending, you automatically finish it. So this is like 2 birds with 1 stone. Or so I thought. There is something else about the true ending, but I'll talk about that during the events. With that Snake Eyes down, I can eye this snake down from above in the coolest ore farming event of the whole game. I then made my way into the cave for the other Serpent Viscera, which is infested with more curse crickets, but that isn't even the worst part. When you get to the end, there's a single cricket on a jar, and yeah, you guessed it, a new mini-boss. What's this? Oh, it's just a cursed version of Odin. Yeah, that's fun. I'm having so much fun. I didn't even manage to land a single blow on her the whole time, so I figured, yeah, I'll just put a pin in that for later. I also set up the Owl Father fight, which just involves a lot of talking to Emma, not that I'm complaining, but I wasn't insane enough to do Hirata Estate again just yet, so I guess my little field trip is over. Back to Monk. I spent several days trying to get this fight down. Yeah, don't misunderstand, I don't mean I was at my desk for 8 hours getting the crap beat out of me by True Monk every day, it was only a couple hours at a time, but still. This fight was ramping up to be one of the most difficult so far. What is extra annoying about that though is, assuming the mod didn't change this, her defeat would unlock infinite Divine Confetti purchases which would make every encounter going forward a bit easier. Eventually, I needed a break, so I decided I would attempt Father Owl. I'm sure that would go well. Of course, the first thing I did was completely ignore the dog summoning Lone Shadow mini-boss. You know, as you do. My reward for that though is a courtyard full of Lone Shadows. How? How is this fair? On what planet did someone look at that and think, yeah, no, that's okay? Like, what? I mean, even for this mod, that's a bit much. And it went exactly as you'd expect it to. I realized that if this was ever going to work, I needed to turn the tide of battle in my favor. First thing I did was use Gachin Sugar to avoid most of the enemies in the first half, as last time I dragged all of them into the fight with me. Then a little cerebral cortex massage for this man here. Now, I didn't really expect him to do much in terms of damage, but my hope was that he would at least aggro some of the others and make it to where I could easily backstab them and make even more minions. I also nabbed this man in the shack off to the left, which sounds wild out of context. This one is particularly lucky that normal FromSoft jank doesn't apply. And in the end, I was able to make it to where I either took them out with stealth death blows or was able to fight in a one-on-one situation. Crazy considering there were like 10 of them hanging around. And there was even one left for me to puppet before taking on Juzo, meaning not only did I get a friend, but also a free backstab. Thanks to having enough spirit emblems to reanimate no jutsu my friend several times over, he actually stuck around for pretty much the majority of the fight. I was ecstatic at the idea that I had managed to get through that in only 3 attempts. I mean, sure, Owl Father probably isn't the greatest reward for it, but hey, however, that high feeling came crashing down as the mod put another mini-boss in the way. One that despawns the shrine until defeated. Well, you know what? It's just a Shinobi Hunter. It can't be that. The thing that upsets me most about dying there is that it respawns all the enemies. So if I wanted that shrine, I would need to clear out everything again and beat the mini-boss. So naturally, I said, hey, maybe the run back isn't that bad, and decided to just always run. But as I got to the hidden room entrance, I turned around to make sure they weren't following me into Owl's Arena because, you know, that's something I'd expect, and lo and behold, they can't fit down here. What time is it, Wolf? 1/2 cheese o'clock, you say? If you line up your head with these boards and wait for the monk to stop attacking, you can use the Mortal Draw to clip his foot for a tiny bit of damage. Just make sure to hop back immediately after landing as his follow-up can hit you. Also, I learned near the end of the fight, if you wait for him to do the big swing, he actually steps forward, so if you time it correctly, you can land both blows of Mortal Draw instead of just the second overhead slash. Though, if you want an actual tip, don't install this mod. That's it. That's the whole tip. Save yourself the pain. Want to see something very much so not fun? Yeah, he can do his little foot stomp grab attack out of nowhere now, and if it connects, it'll heal his posture and vitality. I gave him a couple of tries, but never really made any progress. I'm sure if I kept bashing my head against the wall, it would eventually crack, but I did realize that he's completely optional and just gives a memory. If I really wanted to, I could just save him until the very end and come back when I'm just that much stronger. It's definitely not running away. And you know what, even if it was running away, it's not like I would get very far, as True Monk is right there waiting to cut me down as well. Attempt after attempt after attempt, I fell, but slowly I began to understand the fight and the plan was forming. I just needed something extra. First was more confetti, which I could farm from a nice man in a blue shirt. This also had the nice little bonus of dropping Sin, something that would be important because inflation hit Sengoku Japan hard. And after taking the man's grandchildren's retirement fund, I was able to afford the Phantom Kunai and affix it to my arm. Why would I want it? Well, wait and see, my friends. True Monk Phase 1 is, I believe, pretty similar to Corrupted Monk. It's been a while, but I don't think there were any added attacks. However, she is relentless sometimes, just comboing the same moves over and over. To be fair, that's actually a good thing as her posture bar doesn't have time to recover, but getting used to Phase 1 is super important as the moves carry over to Phase 2 and 3. In fact, the only difference there is that she gets her Shadow Clone Jutsu ability. For Phase 2, it comes in the spicy flavor of jump attack, then sweep attack, then high jump to quick sweep. Repeat this rep 3 times. They always spawn in the same order and usually spawn in a consistent pattern, but once or twice they came at me at the same time. Not a big deal, just be observant. Phase 3, the ghosties get a little bit of a mix-up. Now they come in jump attack to high jump and quick sweep, then finish off with a set of 3 uppercuts, and the cycle repeated twice. That's it though. If you can master Phase 1, then 2 and 3 are no problem with just that one added attack. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Doom, you absolute doorknob, just cheese Phase 2. No one fights all of True Monk. Yeah, let me show you what happens if you try to cheese Phase 2. Maybe just don't cheese Phase 2. In fact, I don't think the real body even spawns when she does this, so it's actually just a trap. Finally, we arrive at Phase 4, and now the moveset has changed. First off, she gets her big 5-hit spin ability from base game, so deflect 4 times and dodge through for a couple of hits. But the bigger question is, what'd that centipede mouth do though? Well, it doesn't inflict curse, her weapon already does that. Instead, it stops you from being able to use healing items because that's fun. A word of caution, anytime she does it, she actually does it twice, so you have to keep dodging. This is where the Phantom Kunai come in. See, this phase she's a lot more aggressive, so mistakes are likely to happen. What I ended up doing was running away and throwing them for small chip damage, and when she would rush for the sweep, jump off her head and get a follow-up hit in. After several hours of multiple days of attempts, it finally looked like it would be time to put True Monk down. Then, disaster struck. I thought for sure in one more attack her posture would break, so I didn't react to her sweep. But it was I who was the fool. And the pain of knowing all I had to do was jump that and stomp her head for the finish was something else. A chance to put the controller down and touch grass maybe? I really should have. Instead though, I tried again, this time without any assumptions, and with one final decisive stomp, the saga of Monk has come to a close. My reward? A breathtaking view and the hope that there are only 2 more bosses before I'm freed. Jane, please don't. I began making my way through Fountainhead Palace, which honestly wasn't that bad. Yeah, there were a few more enemies around, but the mod sometimes does a good job of placing enemies in a way that lets you exploit a blind spot and get in for some juicy backstabs. At the end of the road, however, was this big fella, and yep, another boss that doesn't allow a shrine to spawn. That's cool. At first I was scared because I had no idea what this enemy was, but then I realized it was just a blue ogre that can shoot lightning and all my worries melted away. I almost hitlist him, but in true Doom fashion, I messed that up at the end as well. I think there are more enemies in the courtyard area, I'm honestly not sure, but clever use of Mountain Echo made it trivial, albeit kinda slow. Surprise, surprise, at the end though is another added boss, the Lunar Noble. Complete with its own teleporting corrupted monk attack. I cannot get away from that woman. So this sounds horrible, right? And in one capacity it is. The monk constantly chasing you down is just silly, but the noble doesn't actually do the enfeeble attack and has about as much health as a level 2 Pidgey, so plan, run big circles around this little fence area to separate them, then just chuck throwing stars at the noble until he was ready for a death blow. Repeat 3 times and win. Oh, and no, snap seeds do not work on either the monk or the noble's protective barrier thingy. Next, I spent a considerable amount of time puppeting and clearing out the enemies. I don't really have a reason as to why. Maybe I was worried I would be jumped by some invisible boss if I tried to run through like I normally do. Or maybe that the electric soccer ball one, that's the football ball one for all my non-American fans, would have like 2 things to fight and maybe the ads could join if they weren't dead. I don't know, but it was good sin, I suppose. On that note, I actually decided not to rest at the shrine, which sounds insane in this mod, right? Why take on any boss without full health and gourd? Well, simply, I didn't trust that the whole area wouldn't swarm me while I was trying. So I crossed my fingers that this fight wasn't something stupid difficult. Surprisingly, it wasn't. It was just the normal encounter with more posture and 2 health bars instead of 1. Is the mod healing? Are we getting to the point where the mod author said, okay, I can't be bothered to make any more changes and just ship it as is? You know, I'll probably upset one person with this. This one section is better than all of Subnautica. Another FIFA fan stands in my way, but if you're proficient in the art of jumpy stabby, he dies instantly. After that is another duo boss, because I don't know anymore. They can also both control lightning, so at first I thought this was going to be impossible, but that actually isn't the case. My initial strategy was to use this ledge to cheese them, but that was much more difficult and ultimately resulted in me getting shocked straight to an early grave. I attempted to puppet the ad just before the fight for a little assistance, but he just dies when the encounter starts. Yeah, that's right, you thought outside the box? Fuck you, get back into that box, says the mod author, probably. But I wasn't done with my cheese methods yet. Time to bust out an old favorite, Mortal Draw. This was not safe, not by a long shot. Their lightning could easily outrange it, but as long as the attack connected, they would be stunned and I could get away with it. But they sorta Uno reversed me. When there was only one left, they gain a lightning shield, making them immune to the shock status. Okay. Also, it was at this point in my Sekiro career that I realized you could reflect the blade mid-air to not take chip damage. I thought it was just mandatory when redirecting the lightning. Guess mid-air deflect did have a use. Ultimately, I settled on just backing away from them until they did a lightning attack, hoping they both wouldn't go for one at the same time, then reversal it. I made sure to lower both of them to basically one death blow and no health so I could completely skip the lightning shield phase. Not that that would have been a huge issue, it's just easier to not. It took a couple of tries, but with this strategy and a few pellets, I was able to lower them both to 0, then finish them off one after another. They actually awarded a new prosthetic. I think. I'm not able to craft it, so just back pocket for now, I guess. Now all that's left is to ascend the stairs and take on the Divine Dragon. For whatever reason, Phase 1 starts missing a chunk of health. I have no idea why that is or if it was just a glitch for me, but that's fine. As you'd expect, the mini dragons have a lot more health. What I personally didn't expect was that the tree roots now no longer let you grapple for the big sweeping death blow from above. That is just a weird change. I mean, all that does is prolong the fight. Like literally, that's it. That's all that change does. The dragons aren't difficult, they move slowly and do basically nothing, so why deliberately slow down the player even more, I don't know. At some point, I just set them on fire and started whirlwind slashing them into oblivion. I was genuinely worried about this going in. What if Divine Dragon gained a new breath attack, like a massive swamp curse breath that filled the whole arena and the only way to dodge it was to unplug my controller and plug it back in within a plank second to iframe through the attack or something? But no, it was a completely normal Divine Dragon fight. I mean, maybe he took more lightning blasts to the face, I'm not completely sure, but it was just normal. Okay, we take those. A nice break before the world falls apart, I'm sure. Emma tells me Isshin died. Thank God I don't ever want to fight him and that I'm not cool enough for her book club. Also, Kudo has run off somewhere. I then tried to do the best farm in the game for a bit, but it's no longer the best because there is now a single enemy facing the shrine so they see you when you attempt to start it. I then made my way towards the horror that I'm sure will be the Demon of Hatred, but for now I just wanted to unlock the shrine as a warp point. However, I couldn't do that because, there's another mini-boss in the way, a curse-wielding support character from the hit movie Austin Powers. Also, my fear of not killing enemies before starting the fight has come true as one lone dude decided to end all of Japan by taking Wolf out. Whatever, I'll maybe worry about this later. Demon of Hatred is optional after all. With the skill points I farmed, I buy Projected Force. This was, at first, only so I could get the Mushin book from Emma, hoping that there was a god-destroying ability in it, but it ended up being one of the best choices I had made for the whole run. Not the book was worthless, but Projected Force, oh yes, that is a good. Last on my to-do list for now is to finish the Black Hat Badger's quest. This just involves finding him dying next to a tree and talking to him until he checks out. I was attacked in the middle of the conversation and worried that the Lone Shadow might be able to kill him. I'm not sure if that could happen or not, but it didn't in this case and I was able to collect the item necessary for the event later down the line. With that done, it's time to make my way to the final fight. Is what I would say, but another mini-boss! Nuya the Crimson Feather is a vile hand, except he has a rather unique attack where he just decides to combust repeatedly. Nice, cool, I love it. I attempted to cheese him with shurikens, but I simply do not have enough to get through his health bar, let alone all three of them, plus I would need to jump down there for the actual death blow anyway. Nope, seems it is once again time for the get good. Okay, well it was worth a shot, alright, fine, I'll get good I guess. I wanted the fire umbrella for that explosion attack and I picked up the lilac one on the way, another good decision in hindsight. I had to stop to pick up the pine resin ember, something I think I only did on my very first playthrough, then casually farmed the Mibu villagers before realizing this was stupid, I had a much better farm. This dude, pre-Shocker Duo boss fight, drops nearly 300 sin on kill and over 1000 experience and a chance to drop both Divine and Lazulite confetti. Plus, he's got his back to the shrine. It's literally free. So yeah, no, this man is my bitch anytime I need something new. So it works, I think, but the attacks are still individual, so without spinning the fan to deflect them, they still connect and can break posture. In the end, I found it was simpler to avoid the attack just by backing up, which admittedly was difficult to do in such a small arena, but not impossible, and if you do pull it off, he's open for a counterswing. This took far fewer tries than I thought it would, and it's 100% because of the confetti, plus sidestepping his fire and poison hand strikes for free vitality hits. Following that fight, of course, is the base game duo fight, but the mod author forgot to put a fog wall in like 7 enemies in the arena, so I just left. I'm sorry, he died? I went back and the ad is still here, as well as the entrance fog wall that spawns when the encounter starts, but yeah, the actual boss fell off the level, which would be great, but he actually doesn't die when that happens. I'm not sure why he doesn't, but like Demon of Hatred or Gyobu Cheese does, but whatever, that's fine, I guess. I just won't take my rewards for free. I didn't do anything to earn them, so no harm, no foul, I suppose. Why is the shrine missing? Oh, it's because there's another duo fight down here. One's fire and one's cursed. Mortal Draw, my beloved. And when you kill one, it explodes and comes back as a ghostly figure. To be honest, I kinda expected that, which is why I lowered both of them down to practically no health before taking either of them out. Thanks to that, and copious amounts of cheese in Mortal Draw, I emerged victorious and the shrine spawns once again. And that means it's time. Yeah, it's rough. I spent a long time dying to Genichiro just trying to figure out different strategies, things that did work and things that didn't, what attacks I really needed to watch out for, and after about an hour and a half, I managed to get my first crack at Isshin. And it did not take long at all for him to put me in the ground. I kept trying, getting another shot at him relatively soon, but just the same, it was over before it even began. And this is only phase 1. So I decided to take a break, meditate. Surely there was something I could do. And there was. Several things, though they did not all come to me at once. First, I farmed my blue friend for several $1,000. This is in part to buy more spirit emblems, but also for something a bit more immediately useful. I used the levels to buy Praying Strikes, then Praying Strikes Exorcism. Neither of these are particularly helpful, but the next skill, when I inevitably farm it out, is Devotion, which increases the uptime of sugars. With all my money, I returned to the dilapidated temple and purchased 2 prayer beads, bringing me up to 3. Then grabbed the 4th one from an underwater chest in Fountainhead Palace. I also collected enough carb skills to buy one of the new Shinobi scroll items, but none of them sounded like they went with the tool I picked up, as none of them had thunder-like properties. At any rate, I went and created the 6th prayer necklace, giving myself some much needed posture and vitality. Next, I take on this headless, which wasn't actually that bad. I mean, he did pull my asshole out one time, but hey, what's a little butt tug between warriors or something, right? He drops Akko's Spirit Fall, which is a reusable version of the candy. It does cost spirit emblems to use, but I'm not really that concerned about it. With that, it was back to the grind. Slowly but surely, I started to understand Genichiro, but there is a problem. This isn't unique to the mod either, so I won't knock it, but trying to learn Isshin is much more problematic when you have to spend a couple of minutes to get through Geni, only to die like 10 seconds and learn nothing. That's base game BS as well, though the mod ramps it up to 11 with the added posture. Surprise, it just felt like I was never able to really practice Isshin, making this feel damn near impossible. So, what's a guy to do? Well, it's a simple answer really, Yeah, I turned on God mode and just started practicing deflect, seeing if I could get the pattern in his movement. The real reason I did this though was because I knew Spear Phase was going to be harder, so I didn't really want to spend like a whole week mastering Geni, then another mastering Phase 1 Isshin, only to die in 10 seconds. Like I already was. But as I was watching Phase 2, what is this? He never stops attacking, and half of his moves are some kind of projectile, AoE, curse attack, or a combination of those things. And at some point, I just sat back in my seat and thought, do I really want to do this? Like, am I even having fun anymore? Which was a weird question to ask because I didn't honestly know. On the one hand, if I were to just hunker down, I'm sure I could do it, but on the other hand, do I want to? I mean, deadlines aside, did I really want to dedicate likely hours of my time to doing this? So I came up with a personal compromise. Phase 1 Isshin. All I had to do was get past Phase 1 Isshin and I would consider that a win. Over and over, I threw myself at the boss, getting a little better each time, only to be smacked down and die in like 5 seconds, even on Genichiro. The duo are absolutely ruthless, and one mistake has the high likelihood of ending the attempt. Then, after a few hours of trying, it happened. I sunk my blade into Isshin, taking off that first death blow. He didn't like that, as shortly after I took an Ichimoji to the head and died, but it was enough. I was satisfied. Sure, I didn't beat the mod, but to get this far, I was proud of myself. But as I laid in bed that night, I should have been happy, satisfied, but I wasn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, waiting for me in that flower field, taunting me. Hesitation is defeat. But how? How could I fight such an impressive foe? No, you only lose when you give up. There were still things I could do, still a way I could face him. So first, I headed to the duo ape. I didn't expect this to be too difficult, but it had been a while since I fought him, or perhaps I should say, them. I'm not sure if the mod changes this or not, but the two of them really did not want to separate, dragging the fight out much longer than normal, but in the end, I persevere. All I really wanted for this fight was the attack power boost, but I had forgotten it actually drops 2 prayer beads. Because of that, I decided to take on the long-armed centipede, and Snake Eyes Shinafuji, which awarded me 1 prayer bead each, so I have another necklace. Technically, there were still 2 necklaces I could go and complete, but that would take too much time. So I then returned to my favorite farming buddy and stabbed him in the back repeatedly until I had 8 skill points. Yes, I used Cheat Engine to increase the XP drop, something if I didn't say, something comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. When I had the 8, I got the skill Devotion, which increases the time Sugars and Spiritfall are active. I also, stupidly, spent my money on spirit emblems, so I needed to farm up 5,000 Sen. At which point I bought the Dragon Mask fragment from the Memorial Mob in the abandoned dungeon. Then I went off to Hirata Estate and bought the right mask fragment. And lastly, in Fountainhead Palace, I bought the left mask fragment. I'd actually made a save state prior to this because I honestly thought the mod would do something like, when you attempt to wear the mask, you feel its curse weigh heavily on your soul, permanent attack power 1. But no, it just works. Next, I returned to the cursed Juzo, who was previously too much to handle, but I steeled myself. At one point, I suffered a heart-wrenching defeat when I managed to break his stance through the final death blow, but he had encased himself in cursed flames, and by the time I got back to him, it was too late. In the end, I wasn't able to recover. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet, so I tried again, making sure to stay focused, and he too falls. I then prepared myself for a cursed demon of hatred or some other unfathomable horror, but to my amazement and deep confusion, the demon was completely unchanged from base game. This is the full vanilla fight, 3 health bars even. I didn't have Malcontent, so I actually had to deal with Phase 3's Fire Spin, but that wasn't a huge problem, and after remembering how to fight him, he goes down on the first try. With that, I returned to Isshin, ready to fight him once more, and after multiple attempts, I managed to break through to his spear phase. But that victory was short-lived as he quickly cut me down. Every time I fell, I could hear it. Again! Like a master training a student. I would rise and pick up my sword, ready to clash once more. But no matter how many times I tried, I would fall short. Sure, rarely I would get to his lightning phase, but that too ended just as quickly as it began. So I decided to make one final decision. I headed back to Fountainhead Palace to take out the underwater headless to get Yashariku's Spiritfall. Lobbing off half my health for some extra damage? Insane, some might say. But I didn't hesitate, because as you know, hesitation is defeat. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this week's video. This was something. I still don't really fully understand my own feelings for this mod. I kind of hate it, but at the same time I kind of like it. Not really, but also sort of. I like the boss changes, alright? I like how the boss's movesets are changed. They feel harder, but once you actually like sit down and practice them, they're more fun than like they are like difficult or whatever. But everything else about the mod can kick rocks. That being said, looking back at my Isshin fight, I'm proud of that. I know it's not the hardest one. Y'all have been yelling at me about what the hardest Isshin is since the first video. I know it's not the hardest Isshin fight, and after playing it back, I was like, I kind of want to do it again. I'm not going to, but I kind of want to. But look forward to part 3, which will be coming out in I have no idea how long. But yeah, thanks for watching, and Solin K, congratulations, you are this week's Grand Champion.